Well, we have talked about the importance of the input phase, and actually he talked about it, and today I'd like to focus on the output. Alright? Input and output, they are closely linked to each other. Input is the cause, and output is the effect. So it is commonly said, and I totally agree, that the more you read, the better you can write. Oh, that's true, there's no doubt about it, because the ability of output is always reinforced by the amount of input. But how about speaking? Some people say that if you're exposed to one language all the time, then quite automatically you'll be able to speak that language. Children, young learners, that might be a case, but for adult learners, I'm not really sure. In fact, I'm quite skeptical. I don't agree with the idea, because unlike writing, speaking is a physical activity. You have to use the muscles, and it requires training. Even if you theoretically understand the linguistic system, to be able to speak that is a different thing. It requires training to speak. I myself find it quite difficult to speak a language simply by listening to it, even after listening to it 100 times.
Wyindywidualizowaliśmy się z rozentuzjazmowanego tłumu. Wyindywidualizowaliśmy się z rozentuzjazmowanego tłumu.
I have listened to that one precisely 100 times on the internet, but still I cannot pronounce it. What I want to emphasize here is that you need to practice. Just listening is not enough. For example, I have a friend who is an amateur music critic, and he knows a lot about classical music. According to him, even the greatest pianist, even the greatest musician might make a mistake or two during the concert by hitting a wrong key. And he never misses such an event. Oh, he made a mistake. Oh, he made a mistake again. He is a great listener. He has a very good ear. But when he is asked to play the piano himself, he can hardly play the tune such as Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. His stars never twinkle. It's darkness. English is not my first language. I have acquired it as my second language. And in fact, I'm a typical Japanese guy who loves natto more than anything else. So when I was growing up as a child, my environment was really, totally, typically Japanese, and nobody was speaking English around me. And so when I first encountered this new language at middle school, I thought, wow, it's so difficult even to pronounce a single word. You need to use the different muscles. Actually, it requires extra movements of muscles when you have to pronounce V or F or D or R or L, because those sounds do not exist in Japanese. And in addition to the difficulties of pronouncing a single word or sound, you also need to get to know how they are combined to create a series of sounds. And this part also requires training. This part is also very difficult for non-English speakers or maybe Japanese. So you definitely need to practice how to speak. You need to practice in order to be a good tennis player or saxophone player, a singer, or whatever. My brother was a lousy clarinet player, but he too was practicing very hard. The reason he quit practicing was not because he was lazy, but because of the pressures from his neighbors. It sounds too obvious, but somehow, for a reason that I don't understand, that some people tend to think that in this particular area of learning a language, you don't have to practice. For example, I sometimes or quite often suggest to those who want to learn English that they should practice speaking. And theoretically they seem to understand. I ask them to read a short article from the newspaper and aloud, and they would do so. But if I ask them to read it again, 9 out of 10 they would give me a puzzled look. What? What do you mean again? It's finished. Let's do something new. Would he or she take the same kind of attitude at the piano lesson? The piano teacher would say, okay, let's practice this part 10 more times, and they would follow the instruction. What about golf? How many balls do you normally buy at the driving range? 3, 4, 5, or 6? Unless you are in a serious case of patience disorder, I know that you buy at least 50 or maybe 100 balls, and after taking a break, you might go on to the second round. So why do you refuse to read a short article twice? Many of us have a tendency to jump to easy and magic-like ways to achieve anything. If someone invented a machine that would let you learn any kind of language while you are sleeping, then I will be the second guy to buy it because I need to know what will happen to the first guy. And there is this machine translation. I once read an article about this headset and microphone that enable you to communicate with anybody on earth, because this machine can translate the conversations between you and the person you are talking to. If that's possible, we don't have to learn any language, because you can communicate with all the people, everybody in the world. But what if you fell in love with one of them? Would you still wear this headset and microphone to tell that you love her?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
La 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 la, well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I wouldn't do that. Well, you need to practice. The question is how. Reading a newspaper article aloud is one of the traditional ways. Choose a short one and read it a couple of times. Then underline the new phrases and new words so that you can look them up in the dictionary. You need to know what you're going to talk about. And then read the article once, twice, 3 times, and maybe more, many times, as many times as you can. And when you have read the same article 30 times, I think you'll be able to read it without difficulties. Nowadays, you can easily find an article that comes with an audio file on the internet, so it would be even better to use one of those so that you can check the pronunciation. Now, the next step is to record your own voice. I know many of you don't like to listen to your own voice. Me either. Whenever I see this video in which I'm speaking, I want to kill myself. But you have to do it. Great athletes, they have to see their own images, recorded images, to modify their movements. Singers as well, they have to listen to their own voices to sing better. Speaking is like singing, and a conversation should be a beautiful thing. Now, when you get bored of reading those articles, then I recommend you to be a bit more creative. Presentation. I think you have done some presentations in school, at work, or for your clients. Presentation is an opportunity to talk about your experience or knowledge on a certain topic. And it's also a very good way to organize your idea. If you are a lion trainer, for example, you can talk about how to put your head in a lion's mouth and come back safely. If you are a self-made billionaire, then your presentation should be on how to make a huge amount of money. If you're a non-self-made billionaire, then why don't you tell everybody how to inherit money from a rich father or rich mother? If you said, oh, I have no such knowledge, no such experience, no money like myself, there's no reason for you to be discouraged, because this presentation is not for your clients, not for the audience, but for yourself. You can literally talk about anything. So you may want to choose a topic which is not very unusual, something which is very simple. So why don't you tell somebody how to drive a car? Suppose there's a guy who has never seen a car in his life before. I know the situation is not so usual, but series of actions that you have to take in order to drive a car is something that you are quite aware of, something that you can do even without thinking. Remember the things that you normally do when you drive a car and teach the guy how to do it. Okay, first open the door, get into the car, and put the seat belt on, insert the key into the ignition, and start the engine by turning it clockwise. Blah, 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 blah. By describing what you're usually doing, you can describe certain actions in English. Input is already there. You can elaborate and you can move on to the output phase naturally. Now, if you don't have a driver's license, there's no reason that you have to be discouraged, because you can talk about something else. Why don't you talk about how to prepare basic Japanese curry and rice? Okay? First, go to the supermarket and buy some vegetables, onion, carrots, and potatoes, and don't forget to buy some chicken legs. Cut the vegetables in bite-sized pieces and sprinkle salt and pepper onto the chicken, and heat the oil in the pan, and grill the chicken and stir fry the chicken until it's golden brown, and on and on and on. Okay. Now here is my favorite presentation topic for those who neither drive nor cook. How to drive a wet cat. Okay. So even if you don't have a cat, you can just simply imagine how to drive a wet cat. Okay. The only resource here is your imagination. If you have a cat and it's got wet, what you do if you have a cat and it's wet? First, put the cat on your lap and wrap it in a towel and dry it. But there are some problems. The problem number one, the cat wouldn't sit still on your lap. Number two, your lap may get wet too. And you can also use a hair dryer, but still there are some problems. The cat will be scared by the sound and the heat from the dryer. It might scratch your hand trying to run away. Oh, it's not a good idea to hurt yourself trying to dry a cat. But don't ever, never put the cat into the tumble dryer, because a tumble dryer is something to dry clothes, not to dry animals. Something like that. Just imagine the process and say that in English. Well, whatever the topic may be, just repeat it as many times as you can and record it. When one presentation is completed, then you can go on to the next topic. You may say, well, I don't think I can maintain my motivation talking about how to drive a car, how to drive a cat. I want to be more creative. I know what you mean. So I also recommend you to talk about something that really turns you on, something that really excites you. Why don't you write a goal statement and read it aloud? All of you have a dream. Some of you want to be millionaires, some of you want to travel around the world, some of you want to have a happy family. Goal statement is a description of your typical day after your dream has come true. If your dream is to be a movie director, don't just say, I want to be a movie director, but write a goal statement. Describe the moment that you have achieved your goal. You better create a nice goal statement and get yourself involved emotionally. It's Oscar night. I'm standing on the stage and receiving a standing ovation. I see Julia Roberts here and Ken Watanabe is over there, and beautiful Nicole Kidman is just a few inches away from me, standing. She's the presenter of the Oscar. I can smell her perfume. Great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nicole.
Don't you get excited? You have to visualize yourself holding the Oscar and Nicole kisses you. But don't forget to prepare the Oscar speech, otherwise you might end up being like,
I have no words. I don't know what to say. But I think I can tell you how to dry a wet cat. First, hold the cat on the lap and then wrap it in a towel and then you can dry it. But there are some problems like